Salutations to everyone, and today we are going to study Daniel chapter 12, which talks about a time when Jesus enthrones or becomes the king in heaven, and also at the same time the deliverance of the saints takes place on earth. The books of Daniel and Revelation are twin books. These are the two witnesses who tell us about the last days. Daniel chapter 12 and Revelation chapters 10 and 11 cover an identical time period of the last 1335 days on earth, before the beginning of the millennium. The events in Revelation are described in their order and follow one another. Revelation chapter 9 describes fifth and the sixth trumpet, that is the fifth and the sixth plague, and it ends with sixth trumpet, that is the sixth plague. That means that Revelation chapter 10 and 11 are describing the beginning of the seventh trumpet or the seventh plague, when the history of this earth ends and when the kingdom of Satan comes to its end, and when the Christ millennial kingdom begins. In the 10th and 11th chapters of Revelation, as well as in the 12th chapter of Daniel, from the time when trumpet of the seventh angel blows at the time of Jesus' enthronement, the prophecy takes us back 1335 days at the point of promulgation of the Sunday law in America. This is described in such a way so that we will recognize when we have entered the last 1335 days and when the end of the earth history will come. We read about it. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. Revelation 11:3 says, And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. Revelation 11:7 says, And when they shall have finished their testimony, and they will give testimony for 1,260 days, as we already read, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them. After 1,260 days, death decree is passed. Daniel 12:7 says that it shall be for a time, times and a half, and a time means 1 year, so 3.5 years, and when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. 3.5 times or 3.5 years are 42 months or 1,260 days. When we add 1,335 days from the Sunday law in the United States, we come to the beginning of the blowing of the seventh trumpet. As we already read in Daniel 12, we got 3.5 times, that is 1,260 days, and plus the scattering of the saints, as it says here in the text, that it shall be for a time, times and a half, and when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. So Daniel 12 verse 7 says 1,260 days plus scatter of the power of the holy people, and then the end shall come by delivering the saints of God. And Revelation 11 describes the 42 months or 1,260 days, and after they complete their testimony, the beast that comes out of the bottomless pit brings a death decree against them, but the Lord will deliver his people when the seventh trumpet blows, and that is a time when Christ becomes the King, or he enthrones up in heaven. Jesus in Revelation 10 verse 6 declares when the seventh angel sounds, that there should be time no longer, and then the end will come. And we are reading about it now. That there should be time no longer, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he had declared to his servants the prophets. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. We read Daniel 12:1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. Stand up of Michael means enthronement of Christ. The words shall stand up are mentioned in Daniel 11:2, where it says that yet 3 kings in Persia shall stand up, which indicated the enthronement of 3 future Persian rulers. The standing up of Michael, the great prince, means the enthronement of Christ, and this is the beginning of the millennium or Christ's 1,000-year reign. Until that moment, Satan was the prince or king of this world, and now Michael, that is Jesus, becomes the prince and the king of this world. Jesus said that Satan is the prince of this world. It is written, hereafter I will not talk much with you, for the prince of this world cometh, and hath nothing in me. Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. When Jesus becomes king, God sends an angel to bound Satan for 1,000 years. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. The standing up of Michael is the moment when Christ puts on the royal robes and begins the millennial reign. The voice from the throne speaks the words, it is done, and then God's people on earth are delivered from the death decree and experience a partial transformation. When does Jesus enthrone? And the 7 angels sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the 7th angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, it is done. At the beginning of the 7th trumpet and the 7th plague, by the enthronement of Jesus, Satan's reign ends with bondage. 2 princes cannot rule the earth. When the 7th trumpet sounds, Jesus enthrones and Satan gets bound. God's people are liberated or delivered from the death decree through a partial transformation. At the beginning of Jubilee year, Christ enthrones and delivers his people. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall ye make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all inhabitants thereof. And ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. To sound on the 10th day of the 7th month, in the day of atonement. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, that is the Jubilee year. and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all, and return every man unto his possession. We read again Daniel 12:1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. Stand up of Michael means enthronement of Christ. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation even to that same time. In Matthew 24:21 this trouble is described as, For then shall be a great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. That will be the time when the judgments of God will be poured out on the earth in the form of the last 7 plagues. Then the whole world will unite and pass a death decree against God's people. It says about that order, And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. The image of the beast represents the Sunday law, so the above text reads like this: And he had power to give life unto the Sunday law, that the Sunday law of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the Sunday law of the beast should be killed. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. When they finish their testimony, which is after these 1260 days, then the beast that comes out of the bottomless pit, and that is the eighth, will issue a decree to kill God's people. Just as the papacy, the system, was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, the same applies to the final pope, that he was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, who is the eighth and is of the 7. Revelation 17:11. And the beast, the eighth pope, that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. When the decree to kill God's people comes into effect, and when the unrepentant set out to destroy God's people, then their deliverance will take place by God's people being partially transformed on earth, shining like Moses when he came down from Mount Sinai. It is the moment when Jesus receives the kingdom and pronounces the words, It is done, delivering his people from the death decree. Then the millennium or Christ's 1,000-year reign begins. And then he says, Daniel 2:12 verse 2, And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Jesus will free his people from the death decree by bringing about the transformation of the living and the partial resurrection of the dead. There are 2 general resurrections: the first resurrection or resurrection of life, and the second resurrection or the resurrection of damnation. We read about it. Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming, in the which all that are in graves shall hear his voice, and shall come forth, they that have done good unto the resurrection of life, and they that have done evil unto the resurrection of damnation. Blessed and holy is he that had part in the first resurrection. On such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. The first resurrection, or resurrection of life, takes place at the second coming of Christ at the beginning of the millennium, and the second resurrection, or resurrection of damnation, at the third coming of Christ at the end of the millennium. We can see that on the next chart. At the beginning of millennium is the Christ's second coming and the first resurrection, and at the end of the millennium is Christ's third coming and the second resurrection. A partial resurrection is a special resurrection that takes place on Yom Kippur on the 10th of Tishri during the enthronement of Christ. It takes place before the first general resurrection, and in it the most faithful followers of Christ will rise, as well as the most bitter opponents of the truth. The Scriptures say, "Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him. And all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, Amen. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever." When the unrepentant set out to destroy God's people, then their deliverance will take place by God's people being partially transformed on earth, shining like Moses when he came down from Mount Sinai. The voice of God is heard from heaven, declaring the day and the hour of Jesus' coming. The Israel of God stand listening with their eyes fixed upward. Their countenances are light up with his glory and shine as did the face of Moses when he came down from Sinai. The wicked cannot look upon them. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book. Even to the time of the end, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Daniel chapter 12 was incomprehensible to the prophet Daniel, and closed and sealed for the understanding until the end time. To us who live just before the beginning of the fulfillment of the time frame, God graciously reveals their meaning so that we can understand them and make spiritual preparation for this time. To understand the 12th chapter of Daniel, we read the 10th and 11th chapters of Revelation and vice versa. In Daniel 12:4 says, "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end." In Revelation says the following, "And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire." And this is a picture of Christ. "And he had in his hand a little book open." And the little book open tells us what was sealed in Daniel 12. It's now unsealed in Revelation 10 and 11. "And he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot on the earth." Here the book of Revelation chapters 10 and 11 open for the understanding of chapter 12 of Daniel. That's why we compare these books to understand the message. And then verse 5 says, "Then I Daniel looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river." Daniel 12:6. "And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And Jesus swears and answers when the end will come." In both Daniel and Revelation, Jesus, raising his hands, or a hand to heaven, swears with his Father, telling us when the end will come and when there will be time no longer. Christ swearing with his Father tells us how important this is to understand and how sure it will come to pass, as Jesus personally told us. And we read about it. Daniel 12:6. "How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And when that end comes, then at that point the deliverance of God's people will take place. Now we read Daniel 6, the question again. How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And then we get a response in 12:7. And I heard a man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Daniel 12:6 asks, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? So when there be time no longer, then is the end. And when does that happen? Verse 7 of Revelation 10 is giving us answer. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven, and sware by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. Revelation 10:7. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he had declared to his servants the prophets. The seventh trumpet is the beginning of the seventh plague. From the moment seventh trumpet blows, there will be time no longer, and that means that the end of earthly time is come. And as we see on the chart, Daniel 12:7 is there, which is the 1260 days plus the scatter of the saints. And it shall be for a time, times and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Mystery of God is day and hour of Christ's second coming. That there should be time no longer, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he had declared to his servants the prophets. The seventh trumpet is the beginning of the seventh plague, which falls on the 10th Tishri, when the mystery of God will be finished, which is the day and hour of Christ's second coming. Seventh trumpet is the beginning of the seventh plague, which begins on 10th Tishri, when the mystery of God will be finished or announced. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God shall be finished. Seventh trumpet and announcement of the day and hour. Thus all taking place at the same time. When God the Father announces the day and hour of Christ's second coming, he pronounces it lightly, while his voice breaks through the earth like the strongest thunder. The faithful understand what the Father has said, while to the unfaithful his voice is like a loudest thunder. Daniel 12:8 says, and I heard. So Daniel heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. And he had in his hand a little book open, and that is unsealed. So this little book is now unsealed. And he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot on the earth. Revelation 10 and 11 chapters, which are unsealed, help us understand the sealed chapter 12 of Daniel. Daniel 12:10. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. The wise will understand the 3 time frames from Daniel chapter 12, and wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, as it says in Daniel 12:3. Now we are going to explain last two time frames of 1290 days and 1335 literal days from chapter 12 of the book of the prophet Daniel. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1290 days. What does daily sacrifice represent? In the original text it says tamid, but in English it says daily sacrifice, which marks the daily mediatorial service of the high priest Jesus in the heavenly temple. From Pentecost 31 AD, Jesus is in the holy place in the first room of the heavenly temple, and as high priest performs the daily mediating service for us. In the daily mediatorial service, Jesus, as a sacrifice and high priest, daily forgives our sins and frees us from the power of sin by giving us his victorious life. When does the taking away of the daily service of the high priest Jesus begin? The abolition or taking away of the daily mediatorial service of Christ in heaven begins when the ministry of the beast and his image is established on earth. Worshipping the beast and his image abolishes the daily service of Jesus Christ. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Taking away of the daily mediatorial service of Christ in heaven begins with promulgation of the Sunday law in the USA, namely when the service of the beast and his image is established on earth. What is the abomination of desolation and what does its setting up represent? Jesus explained this by quoting Daniel 9 and 12, where two world desolations are described, of Jerusalem and of the whole world. One abomination of desolation is related to first coming of Christ, and another abomination of desolation for the second coming of Christ. Daniel chapter 9 describes the first abomination of desolation or war devastation of Jerusalem in 70 AD, while Daniel chapter 12 describes the second abomination of desolation or war desolation of the whole world. Jesus explains, "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains." And this is description from Matthew 24. However, there is another same picture of it in Luke 21, and it gives us more information what is the abomination of desolation and where is the holy place. He says, "And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains." The holy place is Jerusalem, and abomination of desolation is military devastation. Abomination of desolation is military devastation, and its setting up is the beginning of the war. Armageddon is a date prophesied war that is scheduled to begin 1290 days after promulgation of the Sunday law and to end on the 10th of Tishri. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1290 days. The setting up of the abomination of desolation is the beginning of Armageddon. In that hour, day, month, and year, the winds of the war are released at the Euphrates River. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, Loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, to slay the third part of men. And the number of the army of horsemen were 200,000, and that's 200 million soldiers. And I heard the number of them. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,335 days. Those who endure and wait for the 1,335 days will be blessed because they will experience deliverance from the death decree and will be glorified. At the beginning of Jubilee year the possession is received. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month, in the day of atonement. Shall ye make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land, unto all the inhabitants thereof. And ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. Based on this, we saw that on 10th Tishri, when the Jubilee year starts, the inheritance or possession is received. And Daniel 12:13 tells us when Daniel will receive the possession, that is the inheritance. Indeed, on that day and at that time. Here we got two translations. One is from King James Version and the other one is New King James Version. A little nicer translation which says, But you go your way till the end, for you shall rest and will arise to your inheritance at the end of the days. But go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand or be resurrected in thy lot at the end of the days. Daniel will rise in a partial resurrection to receive his possession or inheritance at the end of 1,335 days, and this was promised to Daniel. What else is taking place on 10th Tishri, when the 6,000 Jubilee year starts? Michael stands up, which means that Jesus becomes the king. 7 angels sounded. The kingdom becomes Christ. The voice from the front says, It is done. Annunciation of the day and hour. Deliverance of the saints. Partial resurrection and partial transformation. Bondage of Satan and appearance of the 10 Commandments in heaven. But go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. It was promised to Daniel when the Jubilee 6,000 year begins on 10th Tishri, Yom Kippur, when Jesus enthrones and God's people be freed on earth. Then he will receive his lot or possession or inheritance by raising in partial resurrection. Here we end this study, and I wish warm greetings to all, and God bless until our next fellowship.
My fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. My God, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flies that we